Hello everybody, Cheddar Takasuki here, and today I'm going to be reading a fanfic on Archive of Our Own called First Impressions by Boneless Novella. This is a Ishimaru Kiyotaka x Mondo Iwata fanfic. Hope you guys enjoy. Summary. Kiyotaka invites his boyfriend around for dinner to meet his father. As the leader of Japan's biggest biker gang, there were a few people Mondo was afraid of. Mondo Iwata was afraid of. He routinely fought gangsters and policemen. He had faced some of the toughest delinquents, fought some of the biggest and burliest of men, even faced against a few low-ranking Yakuza members at one point. However, there was some people that truly made Mondo petrified. His palms were sweaty, his heart raced. He was afraid not of their physical strength, but their harsh judgment, and the influence that had over the people he loved most. He attempted to steady his ragged breath as he stood outside the door of perhaps the one person he feared the most. His hands were still shaking slightly, and God, he had never sweat this hard in his life. With one final breath, hearing the doorbell. It was 30 agonizing seconds of sheer panic before Takaaki Ishimaru opened the door. Mondo had frozen on the spot. He had hoped at least Kiyotaka would be the one to open the door, so they could at least face the man together. Now he was standing against his one true fear alone, and his consciousness was flailing wildly in his brain. The two men stood staring at each other for what felt like an eternity, but in reality, it was likely a couple seconds. Mondo tore his eyes away from the shorter man as he began to speak. "Hello, Mr. Ishimaru. My name is Mondo Iwata," the man interrupted dryly. "I know this name of my own son's boyfriend." "Oh, yeah. Nice to meet you, Mr. Ishimaru." Mondo sputtered, eyes darting absolutely everywhere except for the stoic man in front of him. Thankfully, the intense awkwardness of the moment was saved by the appearance of Kiyotaka. "Kyodai!" Taka exclaimed, wrapping his arms around the other boy, who was frozen stiff as a board. The embrace of his boyfriend seemed to soften him a little, and he returned the hug before being led inside, wary of Taaki's eyes boring a hole into his back. "I made curry udon for dinner tonight. It's father's favorite. Take a seat at the table and I'll dish it out." Mondo pulled a worn wooden chair out of the old table and sat down, Taaki taking the opposite seat. "So, Mondo Iwata, how are you finding Hope's Peak?" Taaki asked, yet his voice hinted it may be a loaded question. Mondo sat up straighter before answering. "Fine, thank you, Mr. Ishimaru," he squeaked. He mentally cringed at the fact his usually deep and rough voice had jumped 3 octaves, and felt his hands begin to shake again. He cleared his throat before continuing his sentence. Taka has been helping me with my studies, and I managed to get a C in our latest English exam. This was something both Taka and Mondo were extremely proud of, as they understood words are not Mondo's strong point. The words often got muddled on the page, and certain letters kept getting switched. Taka had made it easier. He had read their prescribed reading to him. He was always there to help him spell words. He proofread all of his essays and reassured him that he wasn't stupid. Taaki watched him intently before humming to himself. Mondo could not get a good read on the man, and that made him all the more interesting. Taka rushed over, carrying 3 plates expertly balanced, laying the plates before the men, then took a seat next to Mondo. "I'm awfully sorry for the wait. Please dig in," he exclaimed, seeming oblivious to the tension in the air. However, a hand grasped Mondo on its own said otherwise. He gave Mondo a reassuring squeeze before beginning his meal. The meal started out silent. Occasionally, Taka would lighten the mood with an amusing anecdote or boasting his achievements in school. And that was the one time Mondo saw Taaki's face change from the usual sullen expression. As Taka spoke, a smile played across the older man's lips, as his eyes trained lovingly on his son. When Taka talked, his father beamed with pride, and it was the most understanding of the old man Mondo had ever been. He turned to face his boyfriend, who was now talking about the student council's plans to whatever with the reserve course. Mondo wasn't really listening. Instead, he was watching Kiyotaka's animated movements as he discussed plans with excitement. The way his eyes lit up with hope, the way his voice jumped, and he talked a little too fast, but it was okay because he was enjoying himself. And God, Mondo's heart might just explode. What a catch. Unfortunately, in his excitement, Kiyotaka had knocked into his curry and spilt some on his crisp white shirt. "I'm dreadfully sorry for my inexcusable clumsiness. I hope you don't think me rude, but I must pardon myself to go change." Taka flustered, bowing and apologizing profusely. "That's okay, Kiyotaka. Go get yourself cleaned up." Taaki spoke, with a tone far gentler than the one he had used while talking to Mondo. Taka rushed out of the kitchen, and the two were left in awkward silence. That is until Taaki broke it. "I don't particularly like you." That caught Mondo off guard. He had assumed so, but he hadn't expected the man to say it outright. He pursed his lips in surprise and sat up straighter in his chair. "Don't act so startled. I don't like you, but..." Taaki sighed before continuing, which only gave Mondo's more time to race. You make him happy, and he's all I have. He's my world, so if you make him happy, you can stay. Mondo paused before answering. It wasn't the most flattering or poetic statement, but Taaki seemed to be struggling to find the right words. And it will do. For the first time that night, Mondo spoke at his usual pitch. Or tried to. After all, he's my world too. Taaki seemed pleased with his answer, taking a swig out of his water. Do you get on with your father? Wait. I'm stupid, sorry. Do you get on with your father? He asked, almost pointedly. Mondo focused on the particularly interesting crack in the back splash before answering. You know me. Well, you know of me, my gang, my criminal record. Does any of it scream good parental figures to you? His heartbeat was slowing as he spoke. Takaaki huffed in amusement. Me neither. Mondo looked back at the man and slightly nodded. I'm so terribly sorry. I'll be more careful next time in the order not to tarnish my clothing again, Taka announced as he came back in the room with a new shirt identical to the last. Now, where was I? The rest of the evening continued as such, Mondo occasionally interacting to the stories, mostly the interrupt Taka, gushing about his boyfriend and embarrassing him. Taaki watched in faint amusement, rarely saying a word. Well, it's been lovely having you, Mondo, but I'm afraid I have quite an early shift tomorrow and I need to get some sleep. Takaaki eventually stated. I'm sure Kiyotaka can show you to the door. Of course, thank you for having me, Mr. Ishimaru, Mondo responded. Please. Mr. Ishimaru was my father. Call me Takaaki. He replied dryly, although there was a hint of bitter humor in his statement. Takaaki it is. Kiyotaka watched in amazement before leading his boyfriend out the door. So, what did you two talk about? When I left to go get changed? What did you say? How do you know we said anything? Mondo questioned. Taka stopped and turned to him. You had stopped shaking by the time I returned. Mondo took the shorter boy's hand and answered, We bonded over someone we both loved very much. Taka's eyes lit up and Mondo took the chance to give him a quick peck on the cheek. They stood for a minute in bliss. The moon shone on Taka's pale skin, making him look near ethereal, and the stars danced across his ruby irises. Good night, Mondo, he whispered softly. Good night, babe. Okay, and that is the end of First Impressions. by Boneless Novella on Archive of Our Own. This is also rated general audiences because nothing too bad happens. So, yeah. I hope you all have a great day and goodbye.